It felt weird to be on the highway again, Annabeth and Grover sitting next to me as if they were normal carpoolers. After 2 weeks at Half-Blood Hill, the real world seemed like a fantasy. I found myself staring at every McDonald's, every kid in the back of his parents' car, every billboard, and every shopping mall. So far, so good, I told Annabeth. 10 miles and not a single monster. She gave me an irritated look. It's bad luck to talk that way, seaweed brain. Remind me again, why do you hate me so much? I don't hate you. Could have fooled me. She folded her cap of invisibility. Look, we're just not supposed to get along, okay? Our parents are rivals. Why? She sighed. How many reasons do you want? One time my mom caught Poseidon and his girlfriend in Athena's temple, which is hugely disrespectful. Another time Athena and Poseidon competed to be the patron god for the city of Athens. Your dad created some stupid saltwater spring for his gift. My mom created the olive tree. The people saw that her gift was better, so they named the city after her. They must really like olives. Oh, I forgot it. Now, if she invented pizza, that I could understand. I said, forget it. In the front seat, Argus smiled. He didn't say anything, but one blue eye on the back of his head or neck winked at me. Traffic slowed us down in Queens. By the time we got into Manhattan, it was sunset and started to rain. Argus dropped us at the Greyhound station on the Upper East Side, not far from my mom and Gabe's apartment. Taped to the side of the mailbox was a soggy flyer with my picture on it. Have you seen this boy? I ripped it down before Annabeth and Grover could notice. Argus unloaded our bags and made sure we got on the bus tickets and drove away. The eye in the back of his hand opening to watch us as he pulled out of the parking lot. I thought about how close I was to my old apartment. On a normal day, my mom would be home from the candy store by now. Smelly Gabe was probably up there right now, playing poker, not even missing her. Grover shouldered his backpack. He gazed down at the street in the direction I was looking. You want to know why she married him, Percy? I stared at him. Were you reading my mind or something? Just your emotions, he shrugged. Guess I forgot to tell you satires can do that. You were thinking about your mom and stepdad, right? I nodded, wondering what else Grover might have forgotten to tell me. Your mom married Gabe for you, Grover told me. You call him smelly, but you've got no idea. The guy has this aura. Yuck, I can smell him from here. I can smell traces of him on you. You haven't been near him for a week. Thanks, I said. Where's the nearest shower? You should be grateful, Percy. Your stepfather smells so repulsively human. He could mask the presence of any demigod. As soon as I took of a whiff inside his Camaro, I knew. Gabe has been covering your scent for years. If you hadn't lived with him every summer, you would have been found by monsters a long time ago. Your mom stayed with him to protect you. She was a smart lady. She must have loved you a lot to put up with that guy, if it makes you feel any better. It didn't, but I forced myself to show it. I'll see her again, I thought. She isn't gone. I wondered if Grover could still read my emotions, mixed up as they were. I was glad that he and Annabeth were with me, but I felt guilty that I hadn't been straight with them. I hadn't told them the real reason I said yes to this crazy quest. The truth was, I didn't care about retrieving Zeus's lightning bolt or saving the world, or even helping my father out of trouble. The more I thought about it, I resented Poseidon for never visiting me, never helping my mom, never even sending a lousy child support check. He'd only claimed me because he needed a job done. All I cared about was my mom. Hades had taken her unfairly, and Hades was going to give her back. You will be betrayed by the one who calls you a friend, the oracle whispered in my mind. You will fail to see what matters most in the end. Shut up, I told it. The rain kept coming down. We got restless waiting for the bus and decided to play some hacky sack with one of Grover's apples. Annabeth was unbelievable. She could bounce the apple off her knee, her elbow, her shoulder, whatever. I wasn't too bad myself. The game ended when I tossed the apple towards Grover and it got too close to his mouth. It was in one mega goat bite. Our hacky sack disappeared, core, stem, and all. Grover blushed. He tried to apologize, but Annabeth and I were too busy cracking up. Finally, after the bus came, we stood in the line to board. Grover started looking around, sniffing the air like he smelled his favorite school cafeteria delicacy, enchiladas. What is it? I asked. I don't know, he said tensely. Maybe it's nothing. But I could tell it wasn't nothing. I started looking over my shoulder, too. I was relieved when we got on board and found seats together in the back of the bus. We stowed our backpacks. Annabeth kept slapping her Yankees cap nervously against her thigh. As the last passengers got on, Annabeth clapped her hand on my knee. Percy! An old lady had just boarded the bus. She wore a crumpled velvet dress, light lace gloves, and a shapeless orange knit hat that shadowed her face. And she carried a big paisley purse. When she tilted her head, her black eyes glittered, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Mrs. Dodds. Older, more withered, but definitely the same evil face. I scrunched down in my seat. Behind her came two more old ladies, one in a green hat, one in a purple hat. Otherwise, they looked like Mrs. Dodds, some gnarled hands, paisley handbags, wrinkled velvet dresses, triplet demon grandmothers. They sat in the front row right behind the driver. The two on the aisle crossed their legs over the walkway, making an X. It was casual enough, but it sent a clear message. Nobody leaves. The bus pulled up out of the station where we headed through the slick streets of Manhattan. She didn't stay dead long enough, I said, trying to keep my voice from quivering. I thought you said they could be dispelled for a lifetime. If you're lucky, Annabeth said. You're obviously not. All three of them, Grover whimpered. Dia mortalis. It's okay, Annabeth said, obviously thinking hard. The Furies. The three worst monsters from the underworld. No problem, no problem. We'll just slip out the windows. They don't open, Grover moaned. A back exit, she suggested. There wasn't one. Even if there had been, it wouldn't have helped us. By that time, we were on 9th Avenue heading for Lincoln Tunnel. They won't attack us with witnesses around, I said, will they? Mortals don't have good eyes, Annabeth reminded me. Their brains can only process what they see through the mist. They'll see three old ladies killing us, won't they? She thought about it. Hard to say. We can't count on mortals for help. Maybe an emergency exit in the roof. We hit the Lincoln Tunnel, and the bus went dark, except for the running lights down the aisle. It was eerily quiet without the sound of the rain. Mrs. Dodds got up in a flat voice as if she'd rehearsed it, and she announced to the whole bus. I need to use the restroom. So do I, said the second sister. So do I, said the third sister. They all started coming down the aisle. I've got it, Annabeth said. Percy, take my hat. What? You're the one they want. Turn the invisible and go up the aisle. Let them pass you. Maybe they can get to the front and get away. But you got it. There's an outside chance they might not notice us. Annabeth, you're the son of one of the big three. Your smell might be overpowering. I can't just leave you. Don't worry about us, Grover said. Go. My hands trembled. I felt like a coward, but I took the Yankees cap and I put it on. When I looked down, my body wasn't there anymore. I started creeping up the aisle. I managed to get up 10 rows and duck into an empty seat as the Furies walked past. Mrs. Dodd stopped sniffing and looked right straight at me. My heart was pounding. Apparently, she didn't see anything. She and her sisters kept going. I was free. I made it to the front of the bus. We were almost through the Lincoln Tunnel now. I was about to press the emergency stop button when I heard a hideous wailing from the back row. The three old ladies were not old ladies anymore. Their faces were still the same. I guess they couldn't get any uglier, but their bodies had shriveled into leathery brown hag bodies with bat wings and hands like gargoyle claws. Their handbags turned into fiery whips. The Furies surrounded Grover and Annabeth, lashing their whips. Where is it? Where? The other people on the bus were screaming, cowering in their seats. They saw something, all right. He's not there, Annabeth yelled. He's gone. The Furies raised their whips. Annabeth drew her bronze sword. Grover grabbed a tin can from his snack bag and prepared to throw it. What I did was so impulsive and dangerous, I should have been named ADHD Poster Child of the Year. The bus driver was distracted, trying to see what was going on in the rearview mirror. Still invisible, I grabbed the wheel from him and jerked it to the left. Everybody howled as they were thrown into the right. I heard what I hoped from the sound of the three Furies smashing against the windows. Hey, the driver yelled. Hey, whoa! We wrestled for the wheel. The bus slammed against the side of the tunnel, grinding metal, throwing sparks a mile behind us. We careened out of the Lincoln Tunnel, back into the rainstorm. People and monsters tossed around the bus. Cars plowed aside like bowling pins. Somehow the driver found an exit. We shot up the highway through the half a dozen of traffic lights, and we ended up barreling down one of those New Jersey rural roads where you can't believe there's so much nothing right across the river from New York. There were woods to our left and the Hudson River to our right. The driver seemed to be veering towards the river. Another great idea. I hit the emergency brake. The bus wailed, spun a full circle of wet asphalt, and crashed into the trees. The emergency lights came on. The door flew open. The bus driver was the first one out, the passengers yelling as they stampeded after him. I stepped into the driver's seat and let them pass. The Furies regained their balance. They lashed their whips at Annabeth while she waved her knife and yelled in ancient Greek, telling them to go back off. Grover threw tin cans. I looked at an open doorway. I was free to go, but I couldn't leave my friends. I took off the invisible cap. Hey! The Furies turned, baring their yellow fangs at me, and the exit suddenly seemed like an excellent idea. Mrs. Dodds stalked up the side, just as she used to in class, about to deliver my F- math test. Every time she flicked her whip, her red flames danced along the barbed leather. Her two ugly sisters hopped on the tops of the seat on either sides of her and crawled toward me like huge nasty lizards. Percy Jackson, Mrs. Dodds said in an accent that was definitely from somewhere farther south than Georgia. You have offended the gods. You shall die. I liked you better as a math teacher, I told her. She growled. Annabeth and Grover moved up behind the Furies, cautiously looking for an opening. I took the ballpoint pen out of my pocket and uncapped it. Riptide elongated into a shimmering double-edged sword. The Furies hesitated. Mrs. Dodds had felt like a riptide's blade before. She obviously didn't like seeing it again. Submit now, she hissed, and you will not suffer eternal torment. Nice try, I told her. Percy, look out, Annabeth cried. Mrs. Dodds lashed her whip around my sword hand while the Furies on either side lunged at me. My hand felt like it was wrapped in molten lead. I managed not to drop Riptide. I stuck in the Fury on the left with its hilt, sending her toppling backward into the seat. I turned and sliced the Fury on the right. As soon as the blade connected with her neck, she screamed and exploded into dust. Annabeth got Mrs. Dodds in a wrestler's hold and yanked her backward while Grover ripped out the whip out of her hands. Ow! He yelled. Ow! Hot, hot! The Fury I'd hilt slammed came at me again, talons ready. I swung Riptide and she broke open like a piñata. Mrs. Dodds was trying to get Annabeth off her back. She kicked, clawed, and hissed a bit, but Annabeth held on while Grover got Mrs. Dodds' legs tied up in her own whip. Finally, they shoved her backward in the aisle. Mrs. Dodds tried to get up, but she didn't have room to flap her bat wings, so she kept falling down. Zeus will destroy you, she promised. Hades will have your soul. Brachus, Mrs. Vicinity, I yelled. I wasn't sure where my Latin came from. I think it meant eat my pants. Thunder shook the bus. The hair rose on the back of my neck. Get out, Annabeth yelled at me. Now! I didn't need any encouragement. We rushed outside and found the other passengers wandering around in a daze, arguing with the driver, or running around in circles. We're going to die. A Hawaiian shirt tourist with a camera snapped my photograph before I could recap my sword. Our bags, Grover realized. We left our... Boom! The windows of the bus exploded, and the passengers ran for cover. Lightning shredded a huge crater in the roof, but an angry wail from the inside told me Mrs. Dodds was not yet dead. Run, Annabeth said. She's calling for reinforcements. We have to get out of here. We plunged into the woods as the rain poured down, as the bus in flames behind us and nothing but darkness ahead.